Story 1, Room 616. The hotel loomed over the edge of the highway like a rotting relic. The faded gold lettering above the entrance spelled the Monarch, though half the bulbs in the sign were dead, leaving only the Mon. It stood alone, bordered by dark woods on three sides and a cracked parking lot littered with pine needles and cigarette butts. Jenna paused in front of the automatic glass doors, the rumble of her aging Honda Civic fading behind her. Her eyes flicked up to the top floor, where a single window glowed faintly through the haze of evening. Rain began to fall, light at first, but steady, drumming on the car roof behind her. She didn't want to be here, but the job demanded it. The Monarch was one of the last interviews on her list, part of a freelance piece she was writing about forgotten roadside lodgings for a mid-tier travel site. Not glamorous, but it paid, and she was 2 months behind on rent. She had already visited 9 other hotels along the stretch of Route 47, most of them musty, moth-eaten, and empty. The Monarch, she'd been warned, had a history. The sliding doors resisted for a second before jerking open with a sound like a groan. Inside, the lobby was dim and outdated, filled with the scent of dust, disinfectant, and something older, something sour. A faux crystal chandelier hung precariously from a stained ceiling. Maroon carpet stretched out in all directions, threadbare in the center. Behind the counter stood a man in his late 50s, bald with liver-spotted skin, dressed in a beige suit that fit too loosely around his hunched frame. He didn't smile as she approached. "I'm Jenna Wiles," she said, trying to sound chipper despite the air pressing in on her. "I called about the article. You must be Mr. Gaines?" The man stared at her for a moment, his eyes milky at the edges. "You're late." She blinked. "I had car trouble. Sorry, Mr." Gaines reached under the counter and pulled out a brass key attached to a long wooden fob. "Room 616. Top floor. Elevators on your left. No questions? No ID?" she asked, eyebrows raised. "We don't get many guests anymore." She took the key slowly, unnerved by the way his fingers lingered just a second too long. The brass was cold. Heavy. "Is it okay if I ask you a few questions later? For the article?" He didn't answer. Just turned around and disappeared through a doorway behind the desk without a word. Jenna stood there, unsettled. The elevator, when she found it, looked like it hadn't been inspected in years. She stepped in and pressed the button for the 6th floor. As the doors shuttered shut, the overhead lights flickered. The car began its ascent, groaning with effort. On the way up, she checked her phone. No signal. She expected that. This place was a dead zone, but still, the lack of reception scraped at her nerves. The doors opened with a jolt. 6th floor. It was colder up here. The hallway was lined with faded wallpaper patterned with swirling vines, many of them peeling at the seams. The air smelled faintly of mildew and something metallic. Room 616 was near the end of the corridor. She unlocked it, the old door creaking open on rusted hinges. The room inside was strange. The layout was standard enough: queen bed, dresser, small desk, curtained window, but something about it felt off. The walls were a pale yellow that had long since browned with age. The TV was an old box model, unplugged. The mirror above the dresser was cracked down the middle, the split like a lightning bolt across its surface. Jenna stepped in slowly. The air was still. Too still. She set her bag on the bed and took a few photos for the article, snapping wide shots and close-ups of the warped furniture. When she reached the bathroom, she hesitated before flicking on the light. The mirror above the sink was clean. Too clean. No dust, no scratches, no grime. Just a spotless reflection of her tired, pale face. She leaned forward, squinting. There were scratches on the mirror's surface, faint, nearly invisible, but when she wiped it with her sleeve, she could see them more clearly. "Let me out." Her breath caught. She stared at the words etched into the glass. Not written, not drawn, scratched in with something sharp. She turned, heart pounding, scanning the bathroom. It was empty. Silent. Just a prank, she told herself. Some teenager or vagrant years ago, before the hotel shut down most of its operations. Still, she left the bathroom door open behind her. And the mirror? She didn't look back. The wind outside picked up, rattling the single window pane behind the curtains. Jenna pulled them aside and stared out into the gray. The parking lot below was empty now, no sign of her car or any others. But she knew she had parked it just outside the front entrance. She rubbed her eyes and checked again. Gone. A low hum filled the room, barely audible. She turned. The box TV had turned itself on. Static. She crossed the room quickly, clicking the power button, but it did nothing. The screen hissed and flickered with white noise. A shape moved through the snow. Just a blur at first, then slowly sharpening, something walking toward the camera, impossibly slow. She yanked the plug from the wall. The screen went black. Jenna stood frozen for several seconds, heart hammering. "I need to get out of here," she muttered. She grabbed her phone again. Still no signal. No Wi-Fi. Nothing. She walked to the hallway, intent on going back down to the lobby to speak to Mr. Gaines. Or, at the very least, find her damn car. The hallway stretched long and dim before her, the lights flickering at both ends. As she stepped out, she thought she heard footsteps from down the hall. She turned, but no one. She pressed the elevator button. Nothing happened. She waited, pressed it again. Still nothing. Growing uneasy, she looked toward the stairwell door at the far end. "Old school, then," she muttered and started walking. Halfway down the hallway, she stopped. The doors to rooms 618 and 620 were wide open. She could see inside, identical layouts, dark interiors. But it wasn't the open doors that made her stop. It was what she saw on the walls inside them. Writing. Hundreds of words scrawled in black marker, red crayon, even scratched into paint. "Don't sleep. Don't dream. It sees movement. Room 616 is the beginning. You're not alone." She turned her head slowly, pulse racing. Every door on this floor was open now. Every single one. They'd all been closed when she came up. She walked faster. The stairwell door was just ahead. As she reached for the handle, it jerked violently. Something on the other side had pulled it. She stumbled back, breath caught in her throat. The door creaked open just an inch. Silence. She backed away. And then, from behind her, click. She turned around. Room 616. The door had shut on its own. No breeze. No one in the hall. And then, a voice. Barely audible, soft and female, from inside her room. "Please, don't leave me here." Jenna's legs went numb. She ran. Down the stairwell, past broken steps and water-stained walls, her boots echoing like gunshots in the concrete well. When she reached the lobby, she crashed through the door, panting. Empty. The front desk was vacant. The lights were dimmer now, humming with that same low electrical buzz. She ran to the glass doors, but they didn't open. She waved her hands. Nothing. Pushing didn't help either. It was like they were sealed shut. She turned and shouted, "Mr. Gaines?" "Hello?" Silence answered. Her own reflection in the glass looked pale. Sunken. Her eyes seemed wrong. Too wide. Too still. She reached up and touched her cheek. In the reflection, she didn't move. Then the reflection smiled. And Jenna didn't. She staggered back, heart in her throat. The reflection laughed silently. Mouth open, showing teeth too long and too sharp, and then vanished in a blink, replaced by her real face, mirrored back in confusion. She stumbled toward the hallway behind the desk, calling out again. but this time her voice sounded strange. Warped. Like it echoed backward. Behind the front desk, the key cabinet hung open. Every room key was gone. Except one. The key sat there on its hook, unmoved, gleaming like it had just been polished. Jenna reached for the key, but stopped an inch before touching it. Her hand trembled. She had left the key in the room. On the nightstand. She remembered that clearly. And yet here it was. Waiting. A metallic clatter echoed down the hallway behind her. She turned fast. The lobby lights dimmed again, just for a moment, and she could swear the shadows shifted. She needed help. She needed out. Jenna ducked behind the front desk, fumbling through drawers. Most were empty. Paper clips, outdated forms, a yellowed phone directory from 1999. But in the bottom drawer, she found an old two-way radio. She clicked it on. Nothing but static. She adjusted the channel dial. Hello? Can anyone hear me? This is Jenna Wiles. I'm trapped at the Monarch Hotel. Please respond. A burst of garbled noise, then a voice, crackling and distant. Leave, now, it's watching. Jenna stared at the radio. Who is this? What do you mean? Who's watching? The signal cut out. She stood there, frozen, waiting for more. Silence. Then, Jenna, came a whisper directly behind her ear. She whirled around. No one. The hallway behind the desk was empty. But the shadows were longer now. Reaching. Something brushed her ankle. She looked down. A hand, gray and veined, was stretching from under the front counter, fingers curling toward her leg. She screamed and kicked back, scrambling upright. The hand was gone. She didn't wait. She sprinted through the hallway behind the desk, deeper into the hotel. Storage rooms, laundry carts, old offices. Every door she passed was ajar, as if left open in a hurry. She finally ducked into a small maintenance closet and slammed the door behind her, locking it. Her chest heaved with panicked breath. Inside, it was pitch black except for the narrow slit of dim light at the bottom of the door. She slid down to the floor and hugged her knees. You're okay, she told herself. Just a nightmare. Stress. It's just an old building and a tired brain. Then she heard footsteps. Slow. Measured. Approaching. She clamped her hand over her mouth. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. She held her breath. Something scraped along the wood, fingernails. Long, slow, deliberate. Then a low voice whispered, 616. She could see the shadow under the door. It didn't look human. And it wasn't moving away. The shadow stayed still for an agonizing moment. Then, it dropped to the floor. Jenna bit back a scream as the slit beneath the door darkened completely. Whatever was outside was crouching there, face pressed to the other side, listening. Then she saw it. An eye. Pale gray. Veined. Wide and staring, right through the crack. She scrambled backward into the cleaning supplies, knocking over a broom and a bottle of bleach. Her breath hitched as the eye blinked slowly, and smiled. Not with a mouth. With something else. A sense. A knowing. The shadow vanished. She waited. Minutes passed. Finally, Jenna crept forward and put her ear to the door. Silence. She cracked it open a hair and peeked into the hallway. Empty. She pushed it open and stepped out, clutching the heavy flashlight she'd found inside. The beam jittered over faded wallpaper, casting long shapes that didn't quite match the furnishings. She needed to find a way out. A back exit. A fire escape. Anything. She passed the doorway labeled archives and paused. The door was ajar. Inside, rows of filing cabinets filled the cramped room. Dust hung thick in the air like fog. It smelled of mold and paper rot. But one drawer near the back was open, and a stack of yellowing papers sat on the floor beside it. Curiosity tugged at her. She crouched, picked up a handful of the documents. Incident reports, maintenance logs, obituaries. One caught her eye, dated April 6, 1987. Guest found deceased in room 616. No sign of forced entry. Cause of death, undetermined. Eyes removed post-mortem. Room sealed until further notice. Below it were 4 more, all with the same room number. Her fingers trembled as she flipped to the next. Room 616 should remain unoccupied. Mr. Gaines advised not to enter after dark. Multiple staff reported auditory hallucinations. One maid claimed Mara whispered. Psych evaluation recommended. She turned to the final page. A guest list. Handwritten, smeared with time. Room 616, booked 3 days ago. Under, guest name, was Jenna Wiles. Her knees buckled. She hadn't made a reservation. She had never told Gaines what room she wanted. A whisper crawled across her mind like ice water. You were always coming here. Behind her, the cabinet drawer slammed shut on its own. She ran. Back into the hallway, through the maze of corridors, following faded exit signs that seemed to lead in circles. Her flashlight flickered. The air grew thick, like breathing underwater. Finally, she burst into a stairwell. Only this one didn't go down. Only up. Endlessly. She looked behind her. The hallway was gone. Just brick. And from below, echoing upward, came dozens of voices in unison, hollow, hungry, whispering one word, over and over. Stay. The voices grew louder, layered with desperation and something worse, delight. As if they'd waited so long, tasted nothing for years, and now, finally, someone had arrived. Jenna backed up the stairs, her hand on the rail, legs shaky, heart thundering in her chest. Stay, the chorus moaned again. Closer. She turned and ran upward, taking the stairs 2 at a time. The flashlight beam wavered across the cracked walls. No numbers. No floor markers. No windows. Just the endless spiral, winding higher and higher. Minutes passed. Or maybe hours. She didn't know anymore. Eventually, she reached a landing. A single door. Unlike the others, this one was freshly painted, a rich, deep black. Its brass numbers gleamed, 616. No, she whispered, stepping back, every muscle in her screaming to run. But the stairs behind her were gone, replaced by a smooth wall of concrete. She was trapped. The door handle clicked. Her breath caught. It opened. Inside, the room was immaculate. Soft lighting. Fresh sheets. No cracks. No dust. Everything looked new. But it was the same room. Same layout. Same mirror. And in the mirror stood her. Only it wasn't. The reflection stepped forward, but she didn't. It smiled, slow and unnatural, tilting its head like a dog curious about its prey. Welcome home, it said in Jenna's voice. She stumbled back into the hall, but the door frame warped around her. Her feet slid forward of their own will. She screamed, clawed at the walls, but the room pulled her in like a living thing, closing behind her with a soft, definitive click. Darkness. Then a flicker of light. The TV turned on. Static. And her reflection on the screen, smiling. Behind her, the mirror whispered, "Now you see." Jenna turned. The mirror's surface began to shimmer like water, rippling outward. A pale hand reached through. She tried to scream, but no sound came. Another hand followed. And then her reflection stepped out, perfect, composed, smiling sweetly. "Time to rest," it said gently. Jenna stumbled backward as her doppelganger approached, arms outstretched. "Don't fight it. You're just taking your place." She reached for the door, but it was gone. Just four walls. A bed. A mirror. And her copy. The last thing Jenna saw before the world went black was her own face smiling down at her with pity. 2 weeks later, a woman checked into the Monarch. The same key. The same floor. She smiled at Mr. Gaines. "Room 616, please." He nodded silently. "Of course. Ms. Wiles." Story 2, The Night Clerk. Liam's shift started at midnight. The Ridge Pine Inn wasn't a fancy hotel, just a modest, 3-story place nestled against the edge of an evergreen forest outside a nowhere town in northern Oregon. Most nights were dead quiet. A few late-night travelers. A trucker or two. Locals meeting in secret. But tonight was different. As Liam stepped through the glass doors and into the narrow front lobby, a strange heaviness filled the air. Not oppressive, just off. Like the quiet before a thunderstorm. He nodded at Carla, the evening clerk, who was already slipping on her coat. "Anything weird tonight?" She hesitated, then smiled thinly. Power flickered a few times. "And someone checked in for room 303. Liam frowned. "That's not on the roster." "I know," she said quickly. "They insisted they had a reservation. Paid in cash. I didn't see any reason to argue." He glanced at the guest book. A name had been scrawled in tight, neat cursive. Mr. Abram Grange. "I've never seen that handwriting before," Liam muttered. "Yeah, it creeped me out too." Carla adjusted her scarf. "But hey, one more night closer to payday. I'm out." She left without another word. The doors hissed shut behind her. Liam exhaled and dropped into the cracked leather chair behind the desk. The desk lamp buzzed softly. Outside, the forest was dark and still, trees unmoving in the windless night. He flipped open the check-in log again. Grange had signed in at 11:42 p.m. Paid in cash. No ID. No vehicle listed. His room key was missing from the cabinet, meaning he was up there. Right now. "Fine," Liam muttered. "Don't be weird." Hours passed. Midnight ticked to 1, and 1 to 2. No phone calls. No guests. Just the hum of vending machines and the faint creak of the old building settling into its bones. Then, around 2:37 a.m., the phone rang. He jumped. Liam picked up the handset. "Ridge Pine Inn, front desk." Silence. "Hello?" Then, faint breathing. Raspy. Wet. He hung up. Shook his head. Probably a prank. Or Mr. Grange. He was just setting the phone back down when he noticed something on the security monitor. A shadow moving past the camera in the third-floor hallway. The screen glitched, then cleared. The hallway was empty. He leaned forward. Room 303's door was wide open. And someone was standing just inside, silhouetted by the dim hallway lights. Tall. Thin. Not moving. He watched for nearly 30 seconds. The figure didn't budge. Then, just as Liam reached for the intercom, the screen flickered to static. When it came back, room 303 was closed. Hallway empty. He stared at the screen. "All right," he said under his breath, standing up. "Nope. We're not doing this tonight." But the phone rang again. Liam hesitated, staring at the blinking red light. The phone rang a third time. He picked up slowly. "Front desk." This time, a voice replied. Quiet. Measured. Too smooth. "I'd like some towels, please." Liam blinked. Sure. What room?" 3. "Oh. 3. The way the voice said it made the numbers feel wrong. Like they weren't just numbers. Like they meant something else. He cleared his throat. "I'll bring them up." Click. The line went DA. "Mr. Abram Grange." There was something about the name that felt historical, familiar even, like it belonged in a graveyard more than a guest list. The elevator chimed, and the doors creaked open. The third floor was dark. All the lights were on, none of them broken, but it felt dark anyway. Like the bulbs were only pretending. He stepped out. The hallway stretched in both directions, wallpaper faded to a jaundiced yellow. Carpets worn thin in the middle. Everything smelled like old wood and cleaner that couldn't quite kill the mildew. Room 303 was halfway down, on the left. Liam stopped a few steps away. The door was closed. No light under the threshold. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again, louder. "Towels, Mr. Grange." Still nothing. He pressed his ear to the door. Silence. Then, faintly, scratching. Coming from inside. He backed up a step. And then, very softly, the door handle turned. The door creaked open 2 inches. "Hello?" Liam called. No reply. He pushed the door open slowly, towels still under one arm. The room inside was lit by a single lamp in the corner. Bed untouched. TV off. Curtains drawn tight. No sign of movement. "Mr. Grange?" The bathroom door was open, light off. The air felt used, like someone had just left. He placed the towels neatly on the dresser and turned to go. But then he noticed the mirror. Something had been written on it. Not with a finger, not smudged. Etched. Over and over, carved into the glass was something sharp. "I never left. I never left. I never left." He stepped back, breath catching. Behind him, the bathroom light flicked on by itself. And the door slammed shut. The bathroom door had shut with such force the walls seemed to vibrate. The sudden light beneath it glowed a pale, sickly yellow, like a bulb burning at the end of its life. He swallowed hard. "Mr. Grange?" No answer. He stepped forward, hand out, fingers brushing the door's surface. It was cold. Freezing. He pressed his palm flat against it, and felt a faint pulse, like something alive just on the other side. He knocked once. "Hello?" The light flickered. Then the scratching started again. From inside the bathroom. Slow, deliberate. He grabbed the doorknob. Cold. He turned it and pushed. The door creaked open. The bathroom was empty. No sign of a guest. No sign of towels or toiletries. No moisture on the mirror. No hum of the vent. Only the mirror. And the words. "I never left." Liam turned to leave, and then saw himself. In the mirror. But not exactly himself. The reflection didn't move when he did. It stood still, hands at its sides watching. Its eyes were too wide. Its mouth slightly parted, teeth just visible. Liam raised a hand. The reflection didn't. Then it smiled. Slow. Wide. Knowing. Liam stumbled backward, out of the bathroom and into the room. The light in the main room was now off. He froze. The mirror behind him in the dresser suddenly reflected not just the bed, but something sitting on it. A figure. Thin. Long-limbed. Draped in shadow. He turned. Nothing there. But when he looked back into the mirror, it was closer. Standing now. Right behind him. He didn't turn again. He ran. Out of the room, into the hallway, slamming the door behind him. He sprinted for the elevator, jabbing the button. "Come on! Come on!" The doors opened. He jumped inside, hit L for the lobby. The elevator began its slow descent. But the digital floor numbers didn't change. He waited. Still on 3. Then the lights in the elevator flickered and died. Total black. The elevator shuddered, and he heard the grinding of gears above him. Then, a voice. A whisper. Inside the elevator with him. Going down? Liam pressed himself against the corner of the elevator, fists clenched, breath shallow. The voice had come from right beside him, but in the pitch black, he couldn't see anything. Couldn't feel anything either. No breath on his skin. No movement. Just words that echoed like smoke inside his skull. Going down, the whisper said again, as if amused. Then the elevator jolted violently. He staggered, arms flailing. A harsh grinding erupted overhead, like rusted cables tearing apart. Then silence. The floor number blinked back to life. But it didn't say 3 or 2 or L. It said B. Basement. The elevator began to move. Not smoothly, but like it was being dragged. Liam pounded the emergency button. Nothing. The lights flickered back on, but dimmer. Greenish. Sickly. And there was someone else in the elevator now. He saw it in the reflection on the elevator door. Behind him. Tall. Thin. Hands clasped in front of its body. No face. Just a void where features should be. Liam didn't turn around. Couldn't. He squeezed his eyes shut as the elevator descended deeper into blackness, the floor number blinking, B, over and over again, never reaching. And then the doors slid open. Total darkness beyond. A wave of cold air rolled in. Not just cold, wrong. Like walking into a place that hated the living. He opened his eyes slowly. The figure behind him was gone. But the reflection was still there. Still watching. Smiling now. He stepped out into the dark. His shoes echoed on concrete. Faint emergency lighting glowed along the baseboards, pulsing slowly like a dying heartbeat. The hallway stretched forward, lined with old maintenance doors, storage rooms, and rusted electrical panels. Pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping into puddles below. He turned to get back in the elevator. But it was gone. No shaft. Just more hallway. Nope, he whispered. Nope, no, no, no. A distant sound cut him off. Laughter. Not children. Not adults. Somewhere in between. And then, a dragging sound. Something wet. Coming closer. He ran. Down the hallway, past old breaker boxes and crates marked with faded ink. Shadows chased him, stretching longer with every step. At the end of the corridor stood a heavy iron door. Unmarked. He didn't think. He grabbed the handle and yanked it open. And froze. It was room 303. The exact room. Again. Same angle. Same lamp. Same mirror. But this time, someone was already inside. Sitting on the bed. Waiting. Liam stood at the threshold, every cell in his body screaming to run. But his feet wouldn't obey. The figure on the bed didn't move. It sat perfectly still, back straight, hands resting on its knees. The light from the lone lamp in the corner didn't quite reach its face, just shadows where features should have been. The walls pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Mr. Grange? Liam's voice cracked, weak and too loud in the thick silence. No reply. He took a step inside. The air was colder than the hallway, thick with the smell of damp stone and something metallic. Old blood, maybe? The figure tilted its head slowly. Liam's knees nearly gave out. The door slammed shut behind him. He turned, yanked at the handle. Locked. Trapped. Behind him, the figure stood. Its limbs were too long. Joints slightly wrong. It walked without sound, gliding across the carpet. Liam backed toward the far wall, hands raised. I didn't mean to intrude, I was just bringing towels, The thing stopped in front of the mirror. For a moment, either of them moved. Then it reached out and touched the glass. And the mirror began to ripple. Its reflection did not match. Inside the glass, the reflection smiled. Wide, horrible, skin too tight across its face. And then, Liam saw himself. Inside the mirror. Mouth open. Eyes wide in terror. Banging silently on the other side of the glass. He stumbled backward, hit the wall. The figure turned to face him, its head cocked, as if curious. Then it spoke, its voice dry and old and cruel. "You watched too long." It raised one long-fingered hand. The mirror shattered, not out, but inward, pulling the shards toward itself like a vortex. Liam screamed as the force yanked him forward, his boots scraping the floor. He grabbed the bed frame, holding on for dear life. But the pull was growing. Stronger. His hands slipped. The thing didn't move. It only watched. As he was dragged across the carpet. Closer. Closer. The mirror's surface, what remained, glimmered like black water. He was pulled inside. And everything went dark. 2 days later, Carla returned for her shift. Liam's things were still in the back. But no sign of him. The logbook had one new entry from that night. Room 303. Signed in perfect cursive. Mr. L. Morris. Carla frowned. She didn't know anyone by that name. She looked up at the monitor. Room 303's door was open. And someone, tall still, stood just inside. Watching the camera. Watching her. Story 3. The guests never leave. The Seacliff Hotel was perched on a jagged cliff overlooking the crashing Pacific, its weathered wooden shingles bleached by salt and sun. The place was famous for its views. And infamous for its stories. Guests whispered about rooms that changed overnight, hallways that shifted like tides, and a proprietor who never aged. Maya had always been skeptical. As a travel blogger, she chased legends. The Seacliff's reputation made it a must-visit. She arrived just before dusk, her backpack heavy, her camera ready. The front desk was manned by a woman with silver hair pulled into a tight bun. Her smile was warm but tired, like she carried decades of secrets behind her eyes. "Welcome to the Seacliff," she said, handing Maya a tarnished brass key. "Room 214. The ocean's best view." Maya accepted it, already framing shots of the old lobby, dark wood beams, oil paintings of stormy seas, and a massive grandfather clock ticking softly in the corner. The elevator creaked as it rose to the second floor. Maya's footsteps echoed on the narrow hallway's polished floors, passing doors with ornate brass numbers. 214 was at the far end. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was cozy. Blue and white nautical decor. A fireplace with unburnt logs. Windows framing the restless ocean. Maya set down her bag and pulled out her camera. As she moved to the window, a sudden chill brushed her neck. Behind her, the door creaked shut. She turned sharply. Empty hallway. She laughed nervously. Old hotel. Of course. But the unease lingered. She checked her phone. No signal. No internet. No escape. The grandfather clock downstairs had chimed midnight. She wasn't alone. The soft creak of floorboards above. A whisper carried by the wind. "Welcome home." Maya froze, the whisper curling around her like a cold finger. Her breath fogged the window as she stared into the endless gray ocean, trying to convince herself it was just the wind carrying strange noises from the cliffs. She glanced back toward the door. Locked. No one there. Trying to shake the feeling, she grabbed her camera and aimed it at the room's corners, snapping photos rapidly. The flash lit up the room in brief, sharp bursts, casting long, jittery shadows against the walls. Suddenly, the lens caught something. A dark figure standing just outside the doorway. She lowered the camera, heart racing, but the hallway was empty. The door stood slightly ajar. She reached out, fingers trembling, and pushed it open fully. The hallway stretched silent and still, the old wallpaper peeling at the edges. She stepped out, eyes scanning. No one. The floorboards creaked beneath her feet, but the sound wasn't hers. There was another set of footsteps, light, deliberate, coming from the end of the hall. She moved forward cautiously, camera raised. As she reached the stairwell, she paused, hearing the faint rustle of fabric. Turning a corner, she spotted an elderly man sitting on the bottom step, eyes closed, humming an old sea shanty. His skin was weathered like driftwood, but his voice carried a strange, hypnotic warmth. "Hello?" Maya said softly. The man's eyes snapped open, revealing milky white pupils. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His voice was gravelly but urgent. "This place, it keeps its guests." Maya swallowed. "I'm just here for one night." He shook his head. "The guests never leave." Suddenly, the lights flickered. The grandfather clock chimed again. From the shadows behind him, a figure emerged. Tall, faceless, cloaked in darkness. Maya's skin prickled. The man's eyes widened. "You have to leave before the tide comes in." The sound of waves grew louder, rising, as if the ocean itself was knocking at the hotel's doors. Maya's heart pounded. She backed away, but the hallway behind her stretched endlessly, no exit. Only the cloaked figure, advancing slowly. Maya turned on her heel and ran back toward the room, her footsteps echoing against the narrow hallway walls. The sound of the ocean grew deafening, crashing waves hammering against the cliffs below as if trying to shatter the very foundation of the Sea Cliff Hotel. She reached her door, fumbling with the key in a panic. The brass cool against her palm, she finally twisted it and slipped inside, slamming the door shut behind her. But the relief was fleeting. The room felt different. Colder. Smaller. The ocean outside, once roaring, was now silent, as if it had been sucked into a vacuum. Maya's breath came in shallow gasps as she scanned the room. The fireplace was now lit with a cold, bluish flame that cast eerie shadows dancing along the walls. The grandfather clock ticked in the corner, its hands moving backward. Her eyes were drawn to the mirror above the mantel. Something shimmered within the glass. Slowly, a face emerged, pale and distorted, with hollow eyes that bore into hers. The mirror rippled like disturbed water, and suddenly, a hand reached out. Maya stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. The hand pushed through the glass, followed by an arm, then a shadowy figure slipping into the room with unnatural grace. Her heart thundered in her chest. The figure's face was blank, featureless, but somehow she felt it was watching her with 1,000 unseen eyes. It spoke, voice like the crashing surf. "You cannot leave. The tide is coming." The walls began to close in, the room shrinking, suffocating. Maya scrambled for the door, but it slammed shut with a finality that shook the building. She was trapped. The clock struck midnight once more, and the ocean's roar became a chorus of whispers, beckoning her into the abyss. Maya's hands rattled the doorknob, desperate to force it open, but the wood held firm, unyielding as stone. The room's edges seemed to pulse inward, the walls breathing with a slow, sinister rhythm. The air thickened, heavy with salt and something else, decay, or perhaps despair. The featureless figure moved closer, gliding across the floor without a sound. It extended a hand toward her, fingers long and slender, ending in sharp points that gleamed faintly in the flickering firelight. "No," Maya whispered, backing away until her spine hit the cold glass window. Outside, the ocean churned under a storm-dark sky, waves pounding the jagged cliffs with relentless fury. The figure's presence warped the room. The furniture twisted and warped, the nautical decor bleeding into grotesque, sea-worn shapes. The fireplace flames hissed, sending flickers of ice-cold light. A sudden crack echoed through the room, the mirrors shattered inward, the pieces dissolving into mist. Through the thinning shards, Maya saw a cavernous space beneath the hotel, endless tunnels carved by the sea itself. From the depths, voices rose in a haunting chant. Join us, forever! Panic surged through her veins. She dashed to the window and pulled aside the heavy curtain, gasping. The cliff outside had vanished. In its place was a yawning abyss, black water swirling and beckoning. She slammed the curtain shut and turned. The figure stood still, watching. Then it spoke, voice like distant thunder. The tide takes all who linger. Maya's gaze dropped to the floor. A wet footprint had appeared, glossy and black, leading toward the bedroom door. Swallowing her fear, she edged toward the door, following the trail of footprints. As she reached for the knob, a soft whisper floated through the room. You're ours now. The door creaked open by itself. Beyond lay a corridor that hadn't existed moments before, walls slick with seawater and lined with doors covered in barnacles. She stepped through. The hotel had changed, and she had become one of its guests. The hallway stretched endlessly before her, each door a weathered portal stained with salt and time. The salty tang of the ocean clung to the air, thick and suffocating, mingling with the faint echo of distant waves crashing somewhere far below. Maya's footsteps echoed hollowly as she moved forward, the wet floor cold beneath her bare feet. The faintest flicker of light shimmered at the corridor's far end, drawing her like a moth to a flame. Behind her, the featureless figure remained motionless, a silent sentinel watching her retreat. She reached the light, an old lantern hanging from a rusted hook. It flickered uncertainly, casting jagged shadows that danced along the walls. The sound of whispering voices swelled, like a chorus rising from the depths, calling her name in an ancient, mournful cadence. Maya's breath caught. The voices weren't just outside, they were inside her head. She clutched her temples, the whispers growing louder, swirling in a tempest of forgotten memories and dark promises. Suddenly, one door beside the lantern creaked open. Maya turned, heart pounding. The room inside was bathed in pale blue light, waves rolling endlessly across its walls like living water. Inside, a figure lay on a bed made of driftwood and seaweed, face serene but eyes closed. She stepped inside, drawn by a force she couldn't resist. The figure's eyes snapped open. They were her own. The reflection reached out, voice echoing like a tide pulling back to sea. You have become one of us. The tide never forgets its own. Maya tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed by the crashing waves. The room dissolved into darkness, and the Seacliff Hotel waited for its next guest.